AI may have just caused a loss of nearly $2 million on a major crypto project. I'll tell you about that in just a moment. Was it really because of AI? Was it a hack? I'm going to break all of that down in detail. We're also going to talk about a lot of other topics, companies buying Bitcoin, even sovereign funds get into Bitcoin. Basically, I've got a lot to share with you today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to CryptoRed, the crypto news channel. Let's start with a quick market recap. Bitcoin is still under $70,000. Ether also under $2,000. BNB around $600. Let's jump straight into the news. Strategy, as they know, calling themselves, the company bought $168 million worth of Bitcoin last week. They now hold 717,000 BTC. That's massive. They keep buying. And interestingly, this week they actually managed to lower the average cost basis because Bitcoin price dropped. It had been years since they were able to bring down the average purchase price. So yeah, that's notable. And they're not the only one buying Bitcoin. There's a fund, apparently a Chinese one, although we don't exactly know who it is, that reportedly bought significant amount of BTC exposure through BlackRock IBIT ETF. It reportedly purchased $436 million worth of IBIT shares. Some analysts, including Jeff Park from Bitwise, believe it could be a fund of Chinese origin. There's also sovereign funds involved in BTC buying. Funds linked to Abu Dhabi have increased their exposure to Bitcoin. Again, through BlackRock's ETF, they now hold over $1 billion worth of BTC. That's enormous. We're talking about Mubadala Investment and Al Warda Investments, both linked to Abu Dhabi and very close to the state. Realistically, you can consider this as Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund gaining exposure to BTC. That's massive. I believe it's one of the largest direct exposures by a country, over $1 billion Bitcoin, both on the market, not just seized crypto or something like that. Next, let's talk about Ether. BitMine continues to buy Ether. They just purchased $90 million worth of ETH. They now hold $4.36 million ETH token. That's huge. And the CEO made a statement saying what he's feeling in the market right now really reminds him of the 2022 bear market, or even the 2018 for Ether specifically. Back then, nobody cared about ETH anymore, and 2018 turned out to be an excellent time to buy. He believes we're in a similar situation now, and honestly, I see it too. I genuinely feel there's a total lack of interest. I talked about it in yesterday's video. Are we in a bear market or not? Personally, yes, I think we are in a bear market, and I think the people making smart investment right now are the ones who are going to perform really well when the next bull market comes. Will that be this year, next year? I don't know, but for me, it's going to happen at some point 2016, 2017. If you want to prepare for that, we have to really buy strong cryptocurrencies right now. You have to really be smart about how you allocate crypto. And of course, you need to have BTC, you need to have Ether. And I believe people that say, well, BTC is too high, Ether is too high, are wrong, because when the bull market starts, people really realize that BTC and ETH can go really higher. Now, back to ETH, the staking rate on Ethereum has just reached a new all-time high. We've surpassed, we have more than 30% staking now. 30% of all the ETH are staked, 30.4%. It had been actually pretty stable, the staking rate, for a while, and then recently it started going up again, especially after BitMine, the company that's buying ETH, began staking its ETH. It's billions of ETH. And when you've got an asset that's appreciating, people obviously start looking for yield on top of that. Getting 2.5% to 3% is already pretty solid for Ether. Of course, if you take more risk, you can earn more, but the base yield, the kind of standard staking yield on ETH, is around 2.8%. And yeah, that's quite attractive. We also got BlackRock feeling again to launch a staking ETF for Ether, so that's likely going to increase demand even more. Grayscale already has a stake in Ether ETF. All of this is going to keep moving in that direction. I'm pretty sure that instead of buying ETH through ETF that don't generate any yield, investors will increasingly move towards staking-enabled ETFs. That's much more interesting for people who want to hold long-term. Now, going back to companies that are buying ETH, there's also Edzilla. It was originally positioned like BitMine, focused on accumulating Ether, but they start diversifying and doing, honestly, some pretty random stuff. I saw some news lately about tokenized aircraft engines and other things that felt quite strange. Peter Thiel, a very well-known Silicon Valley investor, had invested in Edzilla. He had around a 10% stake. Well, he just told all of these shares, he sold everything. He no longer exposed to the company at all. And I understand why, because this is clearly not what was initially planned. Their current strategy, in my opinion, it's quite strange, and I don't believe in this strategy. Next, I told you we talk about AI and the major crypto project. I'm talking here about Moonwell. Do you know Moonwell? It's a major DeFi project on Base with around $90 million in TVL right now. At one point in 2025, it had reached $300 million in TVL. And recently, Moonwell had an issue. We can't really call it a hack in the traditional sense because it was more about them misconfiguring something. Some people exploited the mistake. They made and managed to extract $1.8 million. The protocol has $1.8 million in bad debt now, and it's linked to AI. Let me explain. The protocol, so the developers of the project, made a change to their Oracle configuration. You know the Oracle, like Chainlink. It was Chainlink Oracle. Instead of selecting the correct Oracle, the Coinbase CBIT Oracle that reported the price in USD terms, around 2,267 at the time, they selected the Oracle that report the price of CBIT relative to ETH, which is around 1.12. So 1 CBIT equals 1.12 ETH. In the Oracle configuration, they chose the wrong one, and by choosing the wrong one, they made a huge mistake. It's not really a bug in the core code, even though configuration technically lives in the code, but usually smart contract auditors review the contract themselves, then developers can deploy new contract with new configuration afterwards. And here where it gets interesting. This specific change, you can see it on GitHub in the relevant commit, was partially made using Claude code. You can literally see Claude Opus 4.6 in the commit history. And that's a top tier AI model. Claude Opus 4.6 is one of the best AI models out there right now. I also saw that parts were reviewed using Copilots. So there was a lot of AI-based review involved in this code. But clearly, they still missed it. They missed that incorrect Oracle configuration, and it led to an exploit. As soon as it went live, bots jumped on it. They liquidated position immediately because the position that was supposed to be worth more than $2,000 suddenly appeared to be worth only $1 due to the misprice. So anyone who had deposited ETH as collateral, CBETH as collateral to borrow stablecoins got liquidated instantly. That resulted in significant losses. And the problem is, this isn't the first time this happened to Moonwell. They've had multiple issues related to Oracle configuration. If you look at DeFi Llama chart, the reason TVL has dropped several times is because of repeated incidents like this. Not necessarily classic hacks every time, but multiple misconfiguration that ended up being exploited. You can see it back in October 2025. There was already an issue related to Chainlink Oracle. So this is not one-off issue. And that's what makes it more concerning. Back in November 2025, same thing, another issue. So that's multiple times now that they have been sort of hacked. Honestly, I have zero trust now in Moonwell. And that's exactly why. When I talk to people, I coach or advise, I always tell them you really have to study DeFi protocols properly. Some protocols are solid and secure, others just aren't. For me, this kind of thing simply cannot happen on Aave. There are so many analyses done before integrating Oracle, so many reviews, so many layers of validation. The level of scrutiny is completely different. It's much more robust than what you see on smaller or more niche projects that sometimes offer higher yield. Yes, those smaller projects can generate better returns, but you have to be careful about the kind of yield you're chasing. It's not just about yield, it's about the risk-adjusted return, the yield to security ratio. That's what really matters. You need to look at both sides of the equation. And clearly, with Moonwell on Base, fees are low, sure, but when this kind of thing happen, and it's not the first time, trust become a real issue. That's why when you're evaluating a protocol, you need to look at its track record. What's its history? Has it been hacked before? Have there been questionable development practices? Has the team already made serious mistake in the past? Yeah, you really have to take your time before putting money in this kind of investment. They published a post-mortem explaining what happened, but they don't really explain how such error was allowed to slip through it in the first place. So yeah, that's a structural problem to me. Moonwell has deeper issues, and honestly, I would completely avoid it. Now, let's talk about Polygon, which has just surpassed Ethereum in terms of fee generated. Of course, Ethereum's fees have dropped recently. That's part of the context. But there's also renewed interest around Polygon, especially because of Polymarket. Polymarket runs on Polygon and it's generating a huge number of transactions that naturally increases fee, which is a good news for Polygon in the short term. But here's the thing. Polymarket is preparing a token, and it wouldn't be crazy at all to see Polymarket eventually launch its own blockchain. Honestly, that's very possible. We'll see, but if Polymarket were to leave Polygon, that would be very, very bad news for Polygon. For me, that's a medium-term risk. That said, right now, there's a lot of activity on Polygon, and that's clearly positive. Another project that's doing quite well right now, it's Monero. Is Monero? You know Monero, the privacy token. If you look at the number of monthly transactions on Monero, it's almost back to 2022 levels. That's interesting, especially considering that Monero has been delisted from several centralized exchanges. Adoption is more complicated because many centralized exchanges have removed it, but on darknet marketplace, the kind of marketplace where illegal goods are traded, Monero adoption is increasing. New marketplaces are launching with Monero integrated directly. Bitcoin is still preferred in many cases because it's more widely known and easier to buy, but more and more marketplaces are trying to integrate Monero natively. So Monero clearly has a use case. Now the question is, will this continue? I think there will always be a need for a cryptocurrency that is truly private and secure by default. Zcash is positioned in the same niche. Monero is where the adoption is today, but honestly, the technology isn't at the same level as Zcash. What I would have liked to see is Zcash technology applied to a cryptocurrency where everything is encrypted by default. Not like Zcash where encryption is optional and you have to actively choose to shield your transaction, to protect your transaction. Ideally, something like Monero combined with Zcash zero-knowledge technology, that would have been better. Right now, Monero is the most private by default and the most widely used in that category. That's why darknet type marketplace rely on it. That's what I wanted to share with you today about the latest crypto news. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, don't hesitate to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow for another video. Bye-bye.